This program is sponsored by the City of Oceanside. Tom and Helen Hartley of PJ Graphics generously donated the photographic enlargements used in the Living Legacy set. As each of us progress through life, gathering experience and perspective, we seldom have the opportunity to recount our personal stories and impart the knowledge we've gained. Walking among us, one and all, are living legacies. Hi, I'm Tom Morrow. Welcome to another edition of Living Legacies. Today we're in the Carlsbad home of Shirley and Sammy Nestico. Now, Sammy Nestico is one of the nation's great living composers, arrangers, musicians, and I think after you see this two-part series, you'll agree with me. Sammy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Nice to be here.
Now, you were born in 1924.
80 years ago.
80 years ago. And you, where's hometown?
My hometown was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Tell me about your parents.
My mom was born in Pittsburgh, but my father came over from Italy when he was 14 years old. You know, in those days, it was so hard in Europe, evidently, that his mother put him on a boat, never to see him again, to send him to a better life. And he was the best American I've ever known. All he ever talked about was how wonderful this country was.
What kind of work did he do?
He was on the railroad. He started working on the railroad. I'll tell you a story about that too. I said, Dad, boy, I can't believe you worked 33 years without missing a day. You must have been sick. Oh, no, it was 30, he said. He worked over 40 years for the Pennsylvania Railroad.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had, we were four of us. Yeah, one sister, none of us musicians except myself. In fact, no one in my whole relationship I ever remember was a musician or had musical inclinations. I remember I was in grade school. When I went to junior high school in Pittsburgh, I just liked music, you know, like we all do.
Sure.
And I was there 6 months. I'm sorry. I was there 6 months, and I wanted to get in the band. And after 1 year in the band, I knew what I wanted to be the rest of my life.
And what instrument did you play?
Trombone.
Trombone. How old were you then?
13.
13. What was it like growing up in Pittsburgh in those days?
I loved it. I loved it so much. I just said, I just loved the people and that atmosphere there. And my wife said, oh my gosh, she was reading a newspaper article by Gene Kelly, the movie actor, dancer. And she said, my God, this sounds like you. His wife was writing an autobiography of Pittsburgh, and he said, the greatest time of my life was growing up in Pittsburgh. And she says it's almost idyllic, you know, just the way you say it too. I just enjoyed it.
Well, it was kind of a misnomer from the standpoint that Pittsburgh always got a bad rap in the old days.
It should have. It was so smoky and dirty there. You couldn't wear a white shirt. By the 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you had suet all over.
Oh, it was?
Oh, it was awful. They had steel mills down the river from my place, the Ohio River. Those steel mills were running. At night, it was orange, the sky. And one of those mills was 7 miles long.
Oh,
There was a lot of dirt there. Yeah, it got a bad rap.
Yeah.
It should have, though. But today it's more a corporate city.
Well, that being a so-called blue-collar city where everybody
still
really
is blue. Well,
worked hard.
That's right.
And I would imagine that being a musician was attractive to a young man.
Yeah.
You didn't want to go work in the mills because that's basically what everybody did, wasn't it?
Everybody worked in the mills and in that steel mills.
You went through. Where'd you graduate from high school?
I graduated from David B. Oliver High School on the north side, Pittsburgh. And before I could even enter college, World War II broke out.
Uh-huh.
So
How old were you when the war started?
17. So a year later. At 17, though, believe it or not, I started at 13 playing trombone.
Uh-huh.
And at 17, there was I worked the radio staff orchestra at ABC staff. That's I'm proud of that.
What station was that?
It's ABC WCAE was the name of the station. What it was there were 5 radio stations in Pittsburgh, and in those days they subsidized music. We didn't have any commercials. We just played a 15-minute program for people.
Now, you had mentioned when we were talking before the show, you had used a term that I've heard many times because with the guys in my orchestra, they're talking about Mickey Mouse bands.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Explain that term.
Yeah, we played Mickey Mouse music. It was like, Guy Lombardo, Jan.
The sweet music.
Yeah, the syrupy, sweet music. Yeah, the first year at the station,
But that was what was popular.
That was popular. Yeah, but after World War II, I came back into the WCA and worked another 5 or 6 years, and then we had a regular.
So you would
band.
have preferred to be playing jazz.
Oh yeah.
That's real music. Then.
Yeah. Just pop.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm just teasing you.
Yeah.
Now, you went in the service, what, 1942, 43?
43, yeah. World War II. And
You were in the Army?
I was in the Army in combat engineers, and I was fortunate enough never to have done overseas duty, and the war ended, and I came back.
Now, when you came back, you entered college?
I entered Duquesne University. There are 3 big schools there, Carnegie Tech, Duquesne University, and the University of Pittsburgh. And I received my music degree at Duquesne University. I taught for 1 year, but my true love was to write.
Now, you had mentioned to me that you really wanted to come west, but
I wanted to come
Mama had something to say about that.
Yeah, these little Italian mothers. Sammy, why don't you go be a teacher, And I had an opportunity. I was playing with Charlie Barnett's orchestra, and he was a Californian. He invited me to come with him as I was working with him the summer before I started school. And he wanted me to come to California. My mother talked me out of it, so I didn't come in 50, but 46. But then many years later, I came out here.
Well, now, then you went back into the service.
I went back into the service.
What brought that about?
Well, I taught 1 year at the school, and I said,
This is high school?
High school.
Mm-hmm.
I was the band director,
Mm-hmm.
just like, and it wasn't what I wanted. I love kids. God, I love going to schools. I've gone to hundreds of schools and worked with education, But my true love is to write music, and there was an opening down at the Air Force Band of Washington, D.C., if I would get on an audition as a ranger. Mm-hmm. And I made it. And it was I'm glad that...
So you spent the next 12 years with the Air Force
12
Band?
years with the Air Force Band.
All
I even
right there
became
in Washington?
in Washington, D.C. I was the leader of the band, and we would travel to different air bases. I even went to Europe for 10 weeks, in Africa and all that with the band. It's hard, harder than you think, back and forth.
Now, you were
flying.
married at this time?
I was married. I had my 3 children, 3 sons.
Tell me about your first wife.
Oh, she was a doll, and we met when I was originally in the Army, and we were married almost 50 years.
Uh-huh.
And she passed away. And I remember when my tour of duty was over, my 20 years was over. I stayed in the service all those years. She said, we ought to go out, you ought to go out to California and take your shot.
Fulfill your dream. Huh?
She said, if I have to scrub floors, I want you, and if you strike out, I want you swinging. Don't look at balls, strike 3. And so we came out here.
Well, let's go back a little bit
Okay.
before we get to California. You went to, you spent 12 years in the Air Force
Yeah.
and did a lot of traveling around.
Oh yeah.
But you had a change of
Yeah, I did.
venue.
Yeah, I did. I remember, as I was telling you earlier, I knew a fellow that was the chief arranger for the Marine Band,
Mm-hmm.
and he said the colonel has asked me to get an assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Why don't you come on over and work with me?"
Mm-hmm.
So I made that transfer after all those years. In the last 5 years, I went over to the Marine Band. And after a year or so, he retired and I became the chief arranger of the Marine Band. And we all followed Sousa
Yeah.
all along
Uh-huh.
to today, you know.
Now tell me about you had a kind of a unique, well, it was a unique assignment. You worked in the White House.
Oh yeah, I was the arranger for the Marine Band, but I also had a little orchestra that worked for social functions at the White House under.
Now, which president did you start
Well, it
under?
was President Kennedy. I started in May. I only worked a couple jobs there at that time, till November 22nd, of course. And
Of
then
63.
President Johnson, in 1963. Then I worked with President Johnson for almost 5 years.
Well, tell me what you can about that experience.
Wow.
I know there's some things that you'd rather not say.
Someone said, "Did the president ever speak to you?" I said,
President
"Yeah,
Johnson.
once." Yeah, President Johnson spoke to me once. What did he say? He said, he came up to me and said, "Do you call this music?" That's what he spoke to me.
You were playing, what kind of music were you
I
playing?
was playing, you know,
Mickey
kind of
Mouse
pop.
music?
No, kind of pop, you know,
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
Count Basie, up at the White House. And I was all the social functions. It'd have the court justices up, and then they'd have senators, then they'd have the Duchess of Luxembourg or whatever. And, you know, they had social functions up there. And the Rose Garden, I played at the Rose Garden and so on. And I had this little group of 8 people, you know. And then I wrote for the Rolling Strings up there. And just all in all.
But Lyndon didn't particularly care for
No,
that.
he did. He wanted to know if I knew Carolina Moon or Hello Dolly. Of course, Hello Dolly was his campaign song.
Yeah.
Hello Lyndon, da da da. You remember that? So it was an experience. I've had worse and better, you know, but it was an experience in my life. I've had a great life.
Well, now you spent a total of 20 years in the military, but you seem to really enjoyed those last 5 years in the Marine Corps. Tell me about the Marine Corps.
I'll tell you. They treated me so good. You know, when I went over to the Marine Band, there's a spirit there that's undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
If you start walking straighter,
Mm-hmm.
there's just something about the Marines, you know. I remember this one fella, lead trumpet player, and the band was rehearsing. There's 50 musicians out there rehearsing, you know, playing with the colonel. They took a break, and I said, "How's the band?" I was just new. I was only there a few days. "How's the band?" "What do you mean, how's the band? This is the greatest band in the world, United States Marine Band." That's the way that was it.
You got with the program real
taught
fast.
right away. Isn't that wonderful? Huh?
Oh, yeah.
And truthfully, when I go to Camp Pendleton out here, I still see that.
Mm-hmm.
And these young men, if I'm carrying a box to my car, "Can I help you? Let me carry it."
Mm-hmm.
You know, where's your car? Let me help
Mm-hmm.
you. And I still feel that. You're never a retired Marine.
Well, you having the experience of being in the Army, Air Force, and then the Marines, there is something totally separate.
Different from each one. Yes.
Yeah.
The Air Force is more relaxed than the Army, you know.
Yeah.
And officers and enlisted men work on the plane together and so on.
In the Marine Corps?
It's in the Air Force. So there's a different atmosphere in all of those. It's more relaxed than the Air Force. Yeah.
Now, what rank did you retire as?
it's enlisted 9. It's the top of the enlisted rank.
Mm-hmm.
In order for me to be an officer, I would have to lead a band.
And you didn't want to do
be a
that.
band leader. I was a band leader in the Air Force for 1 year, and I quit being a band leader. I said, I want my old job back as being an arranger. I like writing music. That's what I wanted to do with my life, and I'm glad I made that decision. Sure, I wouldn't have had the captain bars or the major bars and more money. Money is not what I'm in this world for. I'm in here to do what I can,
Now, while you were in the Air Force and in the Marine Corps, you composed
Yes, mostly arranging, but I did compose.
marches. What?
Yeah, I did some marches. I remember President Kennedy was in Ireland. If you can recall back then, he went to Ireland and visited his ancestors with his wife, and he came back and he told the captain, I want some Irish tunes written for me. And so the colonel gave me a book of all these Irish folk songs.
Yeah.
So pick out whichever ones you want. So I wrote them, and they made a record. The Marine Band did. I think I have it. I still have the record with a green label, and it's Aaron Go Bra, and we made a cassette for Air Force One for his airplane, and he would play his Irish folk songs on the airplane. Yeah. I remember he wanted a march too. It was called The Boys of Wexford. It's how they fought the English or something, I don't know. And the captain said, write an arrangement of this march for the band. So he said, when we go up on the lawn, we'll play it. Well, they went up, and whoever the dignitary was the ceremony was over, and President Kennedy left the balcony and went in the house, in the White House there. So he started playing The Boys of Wexford. The president came out on the balcony and said, play that again and record it. So,
well, that was a compliment indeed.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
That I've had that kind of life and that kind of experience.
Oh, yeah.
The people I've worked for, the greatest musicians in the world.
Yeah. But I was going to say that especially the musicians of any of the service bands, but particularly the Marine Corps.
Very good. No, they're all
some of the best in the
Oh
world.
yeah, all the service bands are good. They're pretty much on par with one another. They're all good. But when I come out here, I met like superb musicians.
Well, we're going to talk about that in the second half. But would anybody recognize any of the marches that you wrote for the? I mean,
No,
for
I
the,
don't think
for the Marine Corps.
The Boys of Wexford, I did it. I did something called the Vaquero, the cowboys. I wrote a Western march, and I did a lot of concert things for them. We didn't just play marches.
Yeah.
You think of the Marine Band or the Air Force Band playing marches all the time, but they do concerts.
Oh yeah,
they're on
in fact,
tour.
they come out here.
Played
there. Yeah.
And so I did a lot of the concert program things, and I didn't compose a lot. I did mostly arrangements. The colonel would say, "I need this," or the singer.
When you were with the White House, when you had your little dance band there with the White House, did you have any notable singers come up and sing with the band?
I can't remember any.
You had mentioned Carol Channing came in.
Oh, Carol Channing came up because President Johnson, he loved her, and she sang "Hello, Dolly." Of course, that was her, and that was his campaign song, "Hello, Lyndon." So she was there all the time. No, she never sang with the band, but she was there quite often. Boy, it seemed like every month she was up at the White House, as a guest. We had Stan Getz, a great jazz musician, come up.
Saxophonist,
And I remember the Baja Marimba Brass came there from out here in California. They would have, and I remember the president had 2 daughters.
Oh yeah, you played
Linda
and Bird and
yes, and I played for both their weddings.
Tell me about that.
Well, they had several bands. They had Peter Duchin, the
Great
civilian.
society.
But they also had us there. I remember the bridegroom. He became the governor of Maryland,
Virginia.
Virginia. Rob, Captain Rob. He signed me out of the Marine Corps. They wanted to have a dinner for the president, so we had to go to Georgetown to a restaurant there. Boy, there were Secret Service men all over the place, and I have the band set up, this little restaurant, to play music, and I wanted to get rid of some of the equipment and I opened the back door. What the hell do you think you're doing there? Get out of there and close that door. It was the Secret Service in the back. So I closed the door. I don't remember too much about it, but I have a picture in there she sent me. Thank you, Sergeant Nestico.
Yeah.
From
Very
Linda
good.
Bird and Captain Rob.
It wasn't, working at the White House wasn't the easiest duty in the world, was it?
No, because, you're sitting there in that coat that's not conducive to
Lights.
dance music,
Right.
It's a marching. And you're sitting on the stand, you're more or less window dressing too, And if they're speaking at dinner, you're just sitting there in a chair, and it's long hours. And then when you're playing, they never want the music to stop, so you have to I had to keep getting music up.
Well, you told me a funny story
yeah.
about that, and that nonstop music.
Yeah, nonstop. So I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
Because it wasn't pleasant.
But I would imagine, musicians call that wallpaper music, don't they?
Wallpaper from wall to wall.
Yeah, and it's
Never
just like
stop.
you're not seen, you're just heard.
You just heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you just seen.
In that case, when there's something else going on, you're just standing there. Yeah. Now, how many tunes, songs, or compositions would you estimate that you've written over the years?
Boy, it's in the thousands. But I published 600 things. That's since 1960 I started publishing. All for education, for mostly high school, but also college and also young bands,
I've talked to a number of college and high school musicians, and they all know who Sammy Nestico is.
I get these people 40 and 50 years old said, we played your music when we were growing up. I said, I know. This is not new. I hear this every time I go out.
That makes you feel old.
Oh, I said, I'm a dinosaur.
Well, now, one of the things that I know that you're most proud of is this book called The Complete Arranger. Now, this is not light reading. This is a textbook.
That's a textbook.
And this is a college textbook?
More or less, yes. I would say college, yes. You have to know some theory before you get into this book. I didn't want to start. There's books down there. This is books about writing for orchestra and all that. And there's a CD in there that has all those 70 minutes of examples from Hollywood things that I've done, and really sophisticated.
Well, now, you said this is probably one of the most complete books that's been written on the subject of arranging.
Think at present,
you figure somebody's going to come up and one up
write
you.
a better one someday. At present, that's the best book in the world.
And you are selling it all over the world.
Yes, that's in 4 languages. But the funny is, man, in the other room, you'll see the Japanese version. When I open it up and see all those, I laugh.
You didn't know you could write in Japanese.
I didn't know I could write in Japanese.
It's in German?
In German, in Italian, but of course English is where we started. I want to revise that book only once. And that's because nothing contemporary stays contemporary. And I have 2 chapters in there on contemporary music and voice over voice and how they do rock. A lot of rock records are written they take days and months, and I think Michael Jackson took a year for that one record. You know, we do it in 2 days. You know, we go in with a big band, record, but they layer things, layered. You know, a lot of rock records, you come in with the rhythm section, then you bring in some 3 little girls to sing, and then you bring in horns the next day, then you bring in synthesizers, and they layer track onto track. It's a lot easier than sitting up there with a symphony orchestra and saying, let's play, and recording. That's a lot
Sammy,
different.
we're gonna stop there because we've come to the end of this program, but in the next program we're going to talk about your Hollywood years and some of the being with some of the greatest musicians in the world.
Interesting.
This has been the first half of the life of Sammy Nestico, noted composer, musician, and arranger. I'm Tom Morrow. This has been Living Legacies, and we'll see you next time here with Sammy Nestico on Living Legacies.